What is up, guys? So I have a different kind of video for you today. So I call this one How to Write Reports, or The Poor Man's Guide to Police Accountability. So we see a lot of police videos from different types of activists or even just everyday victims of our crooked government. But what we rarely see is how to handle the situation as an average person once the action is over. So this is a method that I use to deal with these types of problems whenever other options aren't easily available. I believe this method is better than lawsuits because the crooked cops rarely actually pay the settlements for lawsuits, and they don't face real punishment even if they're found guilty in a lawsuit. So they don't fear a lawsuit because of that. But if you can file lawsuits, this method is still useful as a supplement to those lawsuits. With this method, they stand an actual chance of losing jobs, going to jail, and even being stripped of their ability to work as police in the future. If you give them a reason to do a proper internal affairs investigation, they have to face real accountability from their own people, which includes lengthy, uncomfortable meetings with senior officers discussing what they've done. And that means that you're more likely to get through their thick skulls with this method. Also, it can be very hard or very expensive to find a civil rights lawyer in many places, and a lot of us don't have access to the legal representation we deserve whenever we need it. This method can be used by anyone with half a brain, a little spare time, and a $30 cell phone, and it can lead to real and meaningful change. So our first step here, we want to be informed. So you're going to take some time to gather names and other identifying information of everybody that is involved in this, if possible. And this is a tip that comes straight from San Joaquin Valley Transparency. If you plan to make records requests from the agency that you're filing this report with, do so before filing your complaints and reports. Because once you initiate an internal investigation, they will lock down all reports and footage of the events until the investigation is concluded, and even afterwards, it can be very difficult to get those things later. So you want to learn your federal civil rights and your rights under your state constitution. And then you also want to skim through your state's laws, mainly the criminal law and the traffic law statutes, and find whatever violations you believe are relevant to your issue. So if you're not dealing with murder, you don't need to go learn every statute for different types of murder and manslaughter and whatever. But if you scroll through and you see armed robbery and you think, hey, that might be relevant, then click on that armed robbery statute and get familiar with it. This takes time, but it's worth it to learn these things, and it comes in handy for many reasons later in life. It's good to know if you're committing a crime, or it's good to be able to recognize when someone else is committing a crime. It can help you to get accountability and keep yourself out of trouble in the future. So when you find something that's applicable, you want to screenshot the exact wording of all applicable statutes during your research for later reference while you're writing these reports. Next up, let's look at some writing standards. So you want to use a decent notepad or a text editor. You can see this is just a simple notepad on my phone, just a simple app you can download, and this is perfectly fine. You want to be organized in your writing, but not overly fancy. You want to make an outline and then fill in the details as you need to. You want to give the date and the time and the location of the incident at the top of your report. You're going to write your experience out in full as a story. It's called a narrative. So you just tell your version of the story as you know it. You want to use proper English to the best of your ability. You don't have to be Shakespeare, but you want to use, good punctuation, capitalization, good spacing, that types of things. You want to use specific professional wording and terminology whenever possible. Don't just say, he was a total prick. Instead, you want to use a more powerful and precise phrase like, he was discourteous, demeaning, unprofessional, and vindictive. So San Joaquin specifically told me that discourteous is an especially good word to use because he has seen complaints against officers sustained due to them being found discourteous. Now, these are not the only words you should use. You should have a good vocabulary, and the better your vocabulary is, the more descriptive you can be. And the more precise and accurate you can be in your description, the better, because it will help the people who are hearing these words to really feel what was happening and really, have a better understanding of these things. So you want to be descriptive, but don't ramble about meaningless things. You want to give all the detail that you need to give to really get the point across, but don't spend all day talking about something. You don't want to beat a dead horse. Let's see here. This is not your private journal where you vent about your feelings, so try to stick to the facts. Now, you only want to reference feelings when they're relevant to the law, mostly. Like in Louisiana, the assault law applies when a person reasonably feels like they're going to be subjected to battery. Another valid example would be, I saw the officer tackle a harmless woman to the ground and I felt that was totally uncalled for. You could also say, I believe that was totally uncalled for. You want to be consistent. If you call someone Deputy Johnson once, don't call him Officer Johnson later. You want to use the exact same wording to reference a person every time. However, it is acceptable if you've already called him Deputy Johnson to just call him Johnson to save time if it's already been clarified that they're a deputy. This also applies to other things, not just to names. So, the specific terminology should be used consistently. Next up, very important, we have to establish credibility. Credibility is the only thing that makes your report worth paying attention to. Don't lie or bend the truth, and don't exaggerate the facts. These documents can be used by federal agencies or powerful lawyers with great effectiveness if they are accurate and verifiable. But you can destroy your credibility through not being accurate and precise with your language. Every mistake that you make about the facts of the case reduces your credibility and makes it less likely that your report will be taken seriously by a judge or jury. If you turn this report into an affidavit of fact by swearing that everything is true to the best of your knowledge and adding your signature, you could be held liable for any lies or unfair charges that you allege against others. So be honest and fair. Don't turn this into a type of malicious payback. This is merely a way to seek justice, not revenge. So you want to specify between beliefs and known facts. This is also very important. So you would say, I believe I saw Deputy Fusilier search inside of a female's pockets, but a court may disagree with what I said there, or I might even be wrong. If I saw another camera angle or something, I might find out that I didn't see what I thought I saw because it was dark. I was a long way from the events that were happening, and I believe I saw this, but I'm not sure. So I have to specify, I believe I saw this. However, I know that I was handcuffed when I was arrested, and no court would ever disagree with that fact. It's just plain and simple, yes, I got handcuffed. So I can say I was handcuffed, period. And that's fine. But you don't want to say, I saw Fusilier search inside a female's pockets, period. You have to say, I believe I saw that. So you don't have to specify that you know something, but you do need to specify when you're not completely sure that it is a belief and not a certainty. Don't pretend to be an attorney. It's okay to not understand a statute or some legal terminology, but if you don't understand it completely, just say that. The reports will be submitted to attorneys and legal professionals who will sort through the minutia, and they will decide whether a violation actually happened, whether the actual charges should be pressed as is or modified or ignored. You should do a few minutes of searching trying to clarify anything which is vague or unknown to you, but don't waste all day on some tiny technical detail, and don't claim to know something that you don't know. Being fair, well-spoken, and honest in this report will give you more credibility in the eyes of whoever reads it later, and will increase the chances of them believing you and being willing to do something about the problems that you're telling them about. If the case is taken to court and people learn that you're exaggerating or lying about one little thing, everything else that you report will be taken less seriously afterwards, or your entire report can be thrown out due to a lack of credibility. A bit of minor roasting for some egregiously bad actions is okay, and sometimes it even helps to drive the point home when you're reporting about something that's just totally ridiculous. But don't waste space writing tons of creative insults. We're not here to roast them. We're not here to just insult them. We're here to lay out the facts for legal reasons. So don't nitpick the criminals in the government as harshly as they do to us. Their real and serious crimes usually outweigh the nonsense that they often charge us with. So just use the real, more serious crimes against them, like false imprisonment, and not stuff like a failure to use a blinker. So you want to sound like you're making a legitimate complaint and not just being a Karen. These reports are going to be sent to powerful people with a huge workload and limited time to spend on very important cases. So don't send them don't send these reports every time you see a cop make some minor violations. You can bother the internal affairs staff of a police department with minor violations, but the stuff we're talking about here in this video, you only want to report more serious crimes to these larger agencies. So after you write your narrative, we're going to list the crimes that you witnessed. This is going to come after the narrative, which is after your side of the story. You're going to explain which laws and policies you believe were violated. Separate the violations into categories, such as listing one officer at a time and making subcategories under each officer, like Officer Blah, federal laws, ABC, which is the laws you saw violated, state statutes, XYZ, those laws, department policy, 1, 2, 3, those policies. And then we'll go down to Officer Blurp, and then federal laws, state statutes, etc. You get the point. So we're going to include statute reference numbers as well as titles in your report if possible. Under each statute, state your reason why you believe a violation occurred according to the wording of each statute. For example, I would say Deputy Johnson. Under Louisiana statutes, I believe, and this is imaginary, I believe he violated RS 1446.1, false imprisonment, offender armed with a dangerous weapon. The reason? Johnson intentionally detained me without reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime while armed with deadly weapons. The detention was for a crime I did not commit, and he had no lawful authority for this. So that's a good reason why you believe he committed that crime. So I worded the reason in this way because this particular statute defines this crime as unlawful intentional confinement or detention of another while the offender is armed with a dangerous weapon. So I used that wording from the statute along with the facts of this imaginary example to show how his actions specifically violated the letter of the law. So next up, now that we're done writing our reports out, we are going to make them pay attention. So police internal affairs departments usually pretend to care. And then whenever you walk out after you make your complaint, they wipe their butt with the report, crumble it up, they throw it in the trash, and they wait about 6 months, and then they send you a piece of paper that says, well, we investigated ourselves, and we realized we're all great American heroes, and we deserve raises and paid vacations and promotions, and as far as helping you with your problems, well, screw you because you don't matter and we don't care. So they will totally disregard complaints, except in the most egregious cases, like when they murder somebody. So in order to discourage them from holding fake, rigged investigations and never giving you any form of justice, make sure they're the last person to receive the reports that you write. Send the reports to these guys first, and anyone else who may be able to help you find justice. Remember to reserve this for federal cases that involve civil rights violations and federal crimes, not just minor traffic violations and that kind of junk. So first off, we have the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. These are some of the best lawyers in the world, and they fight civil rights cases, and they work for free. And also, whenever they come to a police department and file a lawsuit, that department gets scared because these guys win lawsuits. These are not your average, like the court appointed attorneys you get whenever you can't afford a lawyer. These are the real serious, scary lawyers you do not want to be going against in a courtroom. Same thing goes for the Institute for Justice. They are another advocacy group with some very good, very powerful lawyers. And they also take tips. All of these people have places on their websites to just submit tips and evidence of crimes and such. The FBI and the federal DOJ are going to be two more organizations who have branches that are dedicated specifically to dealing with police misconduct. And their websites both have places to submit tips and reports like these as well. And then there's also your state Department of Justice, which is normally a division of the Attorney General's office, from what I gather. And it's just like the federal DOJ, but on a state level. And these guys can really shake up some police departments whenever they come in doing their own investigations of these things. So once you send your reports to all of these people, then you're going to publish it in in text. You can use Google Docs, you can use Pastebin or some other site like this, and you're going to post it up for the whole world to see. You're going to link to this report in all of your social media accounts. Have your friends spread the message far and wide in order to spread awareness of the issues and publicly shame them. Now, this goes along with videos. So if you have video of the events, post the videos and link to the report in the descriptions of any video which you post. This means they'll be publicly shamed through your post, and you will also have very powerful people made aware of the crimes through submitting them to the people above before the police department gets the chance to fake an investigation and cover it up. So even if these big agencies and advocacy groups do nothing with your report, they will still have a record of problems being caused by those officers in that department. So when others make their reports about these same crimes later, they will have more evidence to use against them. And they will be more likely to take up the case if they have 5 reports over the course of a year or two complaining about these same department doing the same things. This means that your reports can have positive effects even years down the road. Even if they do nothing right away in the first month or two or whatever, it can still make a big difference later. So once these steps are completed, then we're going to give the reports to the department's internal affairs department and to the chief of police or the sheriff. Make sure the man on top is aware. And when you send this report to them, you're going to make sure you tell them where else you've already sent the report and where you've already posted it in order to give them some incentive to actually do something. Because if you just send the report in and they don't know, well, then they're not going to react to it. But if they know that the FBI, the DOJ, the ACLU has already seen these reports whenever they get them, and they know that the reports are circulating all around Facebook and Twitter and whatever, getting tons of views, and the videos are on YouTube, they're going to step back and go, "Ooh, this is bad. We need to handle this professionally and properly. We can't just cover it up. We can't just pretend it never happened. We can't just look the other way. Now we have to actually do something." And this is how you get them to do something. So in summary, crooked cops fear the DOJ and the ACLU just like kids fear the boogeyman. These guys can shake down a crooked cop or even entire departments and make life very uncomfortable for them for a long time if they come down on them. So for example, just look up the massive report that the DOJ has released about the Phoenix PD after they investigated them. Right now, there's a local news channel from Phoenix. I think it's ABC 15 or something like that. They have a YouTube channel, and on that channel, they're releasing reports every day about things Phoenix PD has done with violating the rights of citizens, using excessive force because someone insulted them, using excessive force against children, unlawfully detaining children, all sorts of things, one report after another. And everything this channel is reporting is coming straight out of a DOJ report from a really long, drawn-out investigation. This DOJ report's like hundreds of pages long and very in-depth and thorough. So if they come down on a department for some complaints that you made, they're going to dig deep. They're going to use a fine-tooth comb, and they're going to find all kinds of stuff that this department does not want people to know about. There's also an old video of a cop who illegally detained an FBI agent whenever that agent came to investigate the cop about reports just like the ones I'm talking about. And you should look this video up if you have not seen it, because this FBI agent arranges a meeting with the cop out beside some store in public, and the cop goes wild on this FBI agent. He says, "I don't think you're an agent. I think you're lying. Get over here. You're detained." And he cuffs him, stuffs him into the back of a car, just mistreats him in all kinds of ways. And the situation escalates to craziness. And by the end of the video, you just know this cop is going to prison for the way he mistreated this FBI agent. And then on top of that, he's still got all these allegations of corruption, which are going to be investigated twice as hard now that he mistreated this agent. And so, yeah, the FBI does show up and investigate these corruption allegations. So public shaming can lead to a ton of phone calls and general public awareness from the locals. It can cause a serious hit to their reputation in their community, which will take them time and effort to fix. Police fear having a bad reputation. This is another thing which has a very real and lasting effect, and it's something they try very hard to avoid. So show their community that they are not trustworthy, and they will really learn to regret their actions. So lawsuits and internal affairs investigations often fly under the radar, and they aren't known about by the general public or by the more powerful agencies most of the time. So, by broadening the general awareness of their corruption in multiple directions at once through submitting to federal agencies and advocacy groups and publicly shaming them, you can really make a difference. So, that is my way of doing this. Now, a fair warning about this: you have to be prepared for retaliation against yourself if you take up this kind of fight. Sometimes nothing happens. I've done this kind of thing before and have not been retaliated against, and I consider myself lucky, because you can look up people like Justin Pulliam, who have reported on corruption on YouTube and had extreme retaliation over the years against them. In fact, he's still fighting and just completely desperately trying to hang in there because of how hard they retaliate because of what he does. So sometimes you will find yourself stalked by police, harassed, or subjected to false arrests, or even more serious charges that can be really hard to beat even if you are innocent. So it's best if you don't have a closet full of skeletons when you do this kind of thing, as they will probably look more closely at you for any weakness they can attack. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be squeaky clean. You can look at guys like Direct D, like that guy has a rap sheet, but at the same time, Direct D does not have any outstanding warrants that I know of for any serious crimes, and in recent days he's been pretty clean, so he can still do this kind of thing even with a rap sheet. So you don't have to be a saint. You don't have to be someone who's never been to prison, but you do want to be somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of dirt they can dig up and prosecute you for. Now, it's a dangerous world, but if you do your duty as a free American and fight against injustice, you will always know you did the right thing for yourself and for others, no matter what the consequences are. So even if you suffer, even if you have to take one on the chin, sometimes it's just worth it. Sometimes you just have to be that guy who says, you know what, I have the ability to handle this. I see that these things are wrong, and I have to get up and just do something about it, even if it lands me in trouble. Our government is trying to destroy our rights and our freedoms. And I don't want to live in a world where my children are not allowed free speech and they cannot enjoy freedom. There is a real, serious, present danger of this nation becoming a police state and a surveillance state, just like modern China is. Over in China right now, you can say one bad word about the president and you get disappeared. You will never be seen or heard from again, just because, and all you have to do is say something on a telephone call with your mother or your friend, and the police will show up because they monitor everything so closely, and it's crazy. It's scary. And we are closer to this than you might like to believe. There are people in America in power who have spent decades making significant steps toward forcing us into this kind of a situation already. And we're closer than you think. And we have to fight back and refuse to let that happen, or it absolutely will happen. So we have to do something. We have to stand up. We have to protect these freedoms that we've had if we want to continue to have them. Never take freedom for granted. Demand justice and stand boldly in the face of evil. I hope that helps.